Hello everyone, it's Addie here from Whimsy of Things, and I am here today to talk about my July currently inked pens. I want to change things up a little bit this month. I am still keeping track of my pens by using this rolling list of what's inked, but I don't want to spend this video really on this sheet at all. I would rather spend this video with the pens. So for July, I have 24 pens inked. These are not counting the pens that I have permanently inked, which I use for my planner. There's 6 of those, and then the couple other miscellaneous pens that have black in them. There's right around 3 or 4 of those. So there are 10 other pens other than this. If you want to see my permanently inked video to learn more about those pens, I have a link up there. In any case, 24 pens. So here is a subset of them, and then here are the rest. And they will not fit in the frame together, I doubt, but we can see what we can do. 24 pens. I thought it would be interesting to do some statistics, so let me break these down by type. We'll start with that. Of the 24 pens that I have inked for July, there are 10 Flex pens. This entire section, these are all from Fountain Pen Revolution. These 4 are Jaipur version 2 with number 6 Ultra Flex nibs. These 3 are Himalaya version 2 with number 6 Ultra Flex nibs. And this one is a Himalaya version 1 with a 5.5 Ultra Flex nib. So these all Fountain Pen Revolution. This is an Ikaku by Narwhal with a Regalia Cross Flex nib. And this is a Noodler's Ahab with a Flex nib. So 10 Flex nib pens. And the next biggest category of pens that I have inked for July are those that have a broad or a double broad nib. And those would include this Kaweco Sport AL with a double broad, these 2 Kaweco Sports with a double broad, this Mahjon Wancai with a broad nib from Fountain Pen Revolution, this Narwhal Original Poseidon with a double broad, and this Twisby Precision with a broad nib. And moving on to my favorite category lately, or one of my favorite categories lately, these are all architect or architect adjacent nibs. And these include a PenBBS 495 with a Calligraphy No. 2 nib, a Dian N23 with a long knife nib, and a Gravitas pocket pen with a Fountain Pen Revolution architect nib on it. Architect type nibs. Then the last couple categories I'll group together since there's not very many pens in each. There are 2 stub or calligraphy nibs, a Lamy Safari with a 1.5, and a Pilot Parallel with a 6mm. Then we have 2 fine nib pens. This is a Pilot Falcon with a soft, extra fine nib, and an Oaso retractable fountain pen with a fine nib. And then finally, we have 1 medium, this rOtring art pen with a medium nib. And that makes up the 24 pens that I have inked for July. And then before we get into the ink itself and what's actually in these pens, I just wanted to briefly talk about pens that are new this month. These are pens that I just got this month that I didn't have last month. And this is a PenBBS 495. It's a piston filler, and it has a No. 2 calligraphy nib on it. It came with a fine point, and I ordered the No. 2 nib separately, and I'm very happy with that decision. I do like this nib a lot. So that's the PenBBS 495. I ordered that from Etsy. This is a Pilot Parallel that I picked up from a local art store. It's a 6mm. I wanted it to do cards and larger writing with. And I'm sure, if you've never seen the 6mm nib before, it's quite large. It's very nice for larger areas and cards. This is a Mahjon Wancai little pocket pen that my husband bought for me. It's very cute. came with a fine nib. I replaced that with a Fountain Pen Revolution. It's a 5.5 broad. I am not a huge fan of it. I like it better than the fine point, but I did order some Architect nibs that I'm expecting. They just had a sale, and I will likely replace that. And this is just a cute pen. It's comfortable to hold once it's posted, and it's just so tiny. It is, however, an eyedropper fill, which this is my only eyedropper pen, and they make me a little nervous, but we'll give it a shot. And then finally, this is an Owasso retractable fountain pen. It's around $10 from Amazon. The reason I bought this is I had just done a review on the Owasso retractable erasable fountain pen, and I really liked it. This, however, has a little bit nicer build quality. It's more solid in general. The clip is about 10,000 times better. It retracts by using the button up here instead of the clip mechanism like here. But I believe that the actual nibs are the same. They look the same. And I think the mechanism is the same. And the mechanism has worked really well on this. So I just picked this up to play with it. It does not have erasable fountain pen ink in it. It has regular fountain pen ink in it. It's another thing I was curious about with these. And so I'm just trying it out to see how it works. I'm sure you could put the erasable fountain pen ink in this as well. And I think it's a nicer looking pen, but it does not have an eraser on it. So you'd have to have a separate eraser. And if you didn't see that video, I have that linked above as well. So those are the new pens for this month. All right, so how are we going to do this? I sort of battled with myself for a while. I thought about starting another notebook in order to just have a list of my currently inked items for the month that was separated out and easier to see. But I didn't really want to start a whole book for that. I like keeping most of my stuff in my planner, and I am still planning on doing my running list because that's what I use to know what is in each pen each month. And I thought about making another sheet and doing it that way. When I cut down my Kaweco business paper from a B4 size to 8.5 by 11, I end up with some scraps, and I end up with a lot of scraps that are this size. The Kaweco business paper is what I use in my planner, so it is the one that I'm most interested in as far as ink performance goes. So I decided to cut sheets of paper out of that scrap, this size, and I will do one ink on each of these sheets. And I am kind of excited about that because I'd like to be able to arrange them and put all the reds together, all the sheening together, all of the flex pens together. And so that is what we're going to do. We will fill out one of these little pieces of paper for all of the inks, all of my currently inked pens this month. We'll speed through some of them, and some of them I may talk about a little bit more if there's something specific that I want to mention. So we have 24 of these to do. So let's go ahead and get cooking. This month I have 4 sheening inks, 4 shimmer inks, and 15 just regular inks. And the color breakdown goes 4 gray, 4 blue, 4 green, 3 teal, 2 orange, 1 pink, 1 red, 3 purple, and 1 brown. That's what we're going to be working with. All right, I'm going to start out with my black Kaweco Sport with a double broad nib. The ink in this particular pen is Tremol Coke. And Tremol is a brand that generally is only available on AliExpress. I've seen it for sale in 1 or 2 stores. Not very frequently. It is a waterproof and pigment-based ink, so I would recommend using this ink in pens that are easy to clean, and also pens that you use frequently so that the pigment ink doesn't have a chance to dry. But let's go ahead and show you what that one looks like. I'm going to write the nib that I am using. The pen and the color, especially if I have more than one, and then the ink itself. And then I want to do a swatch on the side so we can see a bigger section of that ink. I think I decided I want to do those as a splotch. I'm leaving this because some of these, this is a short ink name and brand. Some of the brands are going to take up more room. So that's basically what I'm planning on doing, just that right there. And number 2 is also a sport. We'll keep with the Kawecos, do the Kaweco AL, double broad. This is an ink I have a bottle of, so I should be using it more. It is a very pretty color. Pen number 4, we'll stick with pocket pens for a minute. I do want to talk about this for a second. If you watched my Gravitas review, you will know that this pen originally had a titanium flex nib on it. I tried probably 20 plus inks in it, and I couldn't get the flex nib to quit railroading. I figured it was likely due to the feed, and I considered altering the feed to potentially make it flow wetter. After I thought about that for a little while, I decided to just try the titanium nib that came on this pen, the flex nib, on one of my Fountain Pen Revolution pens, just to see how it did with that feed, because I know those feeds work very well. And we will actually try that out later to see how it worked. But in the meantime, I kept the Gravitas feed on this the same. I didn't alter it at all. And I put a Fountain Pen Revolution Architect nib on here. I really like the Fountain Pen Revolution Architect nibs. And spoiler alert for this pen, I actually enjoy writing with it now. It doesn't frustrate me. I think it works really well. And I'm very happy that I made the switch with the nib, and I am slightly unhappy with myself for waiting so long. So let's see how this writes. Appropriate since this pen got reborn. Love writing with this pen now. It's just fantastic. And just to show you guys real quick the Architect nib, the Fountain Pen Revolution Architect nib is very smooth and has a pretty good line variation. Up and down to the side-by-side strokes. So side-by-side, especially if you lift it a little bit, this is the difference that you're going to see. Really like this nib. Very glad I bought it. It's fairly inexpensive too, especially if there's a sale. I think it normally retails for $9. So that is the Gravitas with the new nib. Build quality was never a problem. It was always the nib. And now that that nib is gone, I can just appreciate the build quality. I called this an orange ink when I said how many of each color I have this month. One could argue that it's red. It's really on the border, but because it has a gold sheen, I feel like that pushes it more into the orange category than the red. Looks very red here, looks much less red when it dries. All right, and then if we do my last pocket pen, this Mahjon Wancai, it did have a fine nib in it. I replaced it with a Fountain Pen Revolution broad nib for now. And the ink that we have in here is Tom's Studio Forest Green. And with that writing sample, you can probably see why I want to replace the nib. It does have some start of the line issues. I am not invested enough in this nib to worry about it. And green. It's just a nice, solid forest green that has a little bit of shading in it, which I appreciate. So it's dark, but there's still, in these spots, you can see some shading that comes through, which I think will be even prettier with an architect. Let's move on to pen number 6. Since we were just talking about architects, I'll go ahead and do my PenBBS 495 with the number 2 calligraphy. This is a new to me pen. There's something about this architect before I do the swatch for this. We have a nice wide line like that, like this over here. It seems like the downstroke is even narrower though. It has more of a point that if you really hold up and down, you can get very thin with. So you see how like the thin, these two, this is narrower. There's just something more pointed about this one. And I could try zooming in to see, but with the shadow and stuff, it's a little difficult. Very smooth. Really like this nib a lot. It is amazing how much difference changing the nib makes with this pen for me. And I promised we wouldn't spend much time on this sheet, but I just want to show you really very quickly. When I first got the pen, this is the writing sample right here. And it's okay, it's fine. But compared to this, the color just has so much more opportunity to just sink with the wider calligraphy nib. And if I put them right by each other, see, there's the difference. That nib change made me like the pen so much more. I strongly encourage you to feel free to change the nib in your pen if you are not happy with the nib. It makes all the difference. That's been 2 examples this month alone where just a simple nib change has made me like both of these pens significantly more. I guess 3, because I would say the same about this, even though I don't love the nib that's in there. And number 7 has a shimmer ink in it, so I'm going to agitate it just a little bit. This is a architect adjacent nib. It is a Dian N23 with a long knife nib on it. If we are to go to this sheet here, we would see that it does have around the same with the width, and that the up and down strokes are closer probably to this. This is the fountain pen Revolution. Not quite as thin as this, closer to that, but still a respectable variation, and definitely in an architect style where the cross stroke is wider than the up and down strokes. And this pen is available on Amazon and fairly easy to get. We're moving on to pen number 8, and I think I will do my one lonely medium pen. This is my rOtring art pen. It has a medium nib, and it has a discontinued ink in it. It's Private Reserve gray flannel. I actually re-inked it with gray flannel. I was intending to de-ink this and store it, but I ended up writing something long with the gray flannel ink. I needed to finish it with the same ink, so then I had to re-ink it. I complain about medium nibs being sort of boring, but frankly, this medium nib, it's bouncy. It's not flexible, it's bouncy. So I don't mind writing with it quite as much because it doesn't feel as stiff as a lot of medium nibs, especially those that come on like the Jinhaos or some of the Amazon more inexpensive fountain pens. It's not stiff. So it's more pleasant to write with, definitely. And this is my bottle of Private Reserve. It is basically about gone, which makes me very sad. This particular gray I used for a very, very long time. It has nice shading and is exactly the tone of gray that I want. It's not too cool, it's not too warm, and it's not too light, not too dark. Goldilocks situation here, and they don't make it anymore and is basically gone. So sad. Do you guys have any inks that got discontinued that you love or that you can't get anymore? I know there's an Iroshizuku one that everybody loves. It's not available. Let's do one of the Flux pens. This is pen number 9. This is a Fountain Pen Revolution Himalaya version 1 that I actually am looking to retire because the version 1s, I don't really like the converter for, and we're almost out of this, which is sad because this is my most favorite brown ink that I've used. Let me show you what it is. This is a Fountain Pen Revolution. Himalaya version 1. It has a Ultra Flex. I really like this brown a lot. It's got excellent shading. It does spread a little bit. You can see that here, but it doesn't seem to do that in my actual planner. It just wants to do it here for some reason. Any idea where this brown's from? Does it look familiar to anybody? This is a Birmingham pen company. This is ceramic kiln. It just has such nice shading in it. The tone is nice. It's not too dark. It's definitely a brown. It's got a little bit of red in it, but not too much. I do want to order a bottle of this. I do. It's brown without being muddy at all. It's just a warm brown, medium warm brown without a lot of fuss to it. This is a Fountain Pen Revolution Jaipur version 2. This is my favorite model of Fountain Pen Revolution pens because it has an ink window. It is a piston filler with a blind cap on it to keep from accidentally twisting this when you post or unpost it. 6 Ultra Flex nib on it. I like the patterns and colors that it comes in. I do get some ink around the threads. This is my primary writer for my journal and my planner. I always keep a gray ink in it. That gray ink would probably be gray flannel if it was still made, but as it stands right now, it varies from month to month. And let's see what we have in it this month. Funny thing about this ink, when I first bought it, I did not like it at all. I am not sure if it was the paper I was using at the time or the pen. It was too wet, it feathered, it gave me all kinds of problems. I almost got rid of it, and then I tried it again maybe a month ago or so, and it's working great. So I'm not sure what the deal was before, but I do like the tone of it. I like the shading, nice shading in here that happens, and it performs well. So I'm glad I did not get rid of it. It's just a nice, smoky, soft, medium gray with nice shading. Very nice. Like that one a lot. It was Noodlers. This was one of the first pens that I bought after I got back into fountain pens. I think a lot of people that are interested in flex pens pick this up because it's inexpensive. It is not a great flex pen to start with though, because it can be extremely touchy. Mine has worked well basically the entire time, but I think that's the exception other than the rule. And I want to do a beginner guide to flex, how to get started the right way for less than $50 or something like that. I have some suggestions. This is not what I would suggest. Almost always keep a shimmer ink in this Ahab because I don't really care about it. I don't really care about it. I mean, honestly, I don't care enough about it to worry about not being able to clean it out one day. This is a Fountain Pen Revolution Himalaya version 2. This is one of the green inks that I have this month. It's a nice green though. Fountain Pen Revolution Jaipur version 2. Let's do one of the sheening inks, since we haven't done any of those. Let us do this. This is a Narwhal original Poseidon with a double broad. This is a very, very wet writer. These are so sheening that the base color almost doesn't matter. That is the base color. It's a bluish, a teal. But these Birmingham Pen Company sheening inks are no joke. In fact, let's do the other one. This one right here. It is a sheening ink that has a blue base instead of a teal. You can tell because the sheening on here gives it more of a purple hue. All right, number 16. Let's get this guy out of the way because I don't even know how I'm going to do this. This is a Pilot Parallel 6mm. All right, well, I'm clearly going to be able to remember what pen did this. The ink is Birmingham Pen Company's Triumph Tulip Twinkle. Did a video on it. I'll link it above if you want to look at it. Very pretty shimmer. I used it for a card. I'll link that, or I'll put a picture of that right here too so you can see. Yeah, this is a very bold pen with these pilot parallels. You can write small. So I could write pilot parallel 6.0 millimeter. They do actually write pretty well if you write just with the point. Lamy Safari. I really like this one. It's a pretty dark blue. The shimmer almost comes across as shading with where it falls. Don't go through it very fast though, so I think this has shown up in more than one currently inked video of mine where I've talked about it before. So just use this for titles. Pilot Falcon. The point is very fine. I'm not into fine points. I thought that the fact that it was an extra soft fine would bring me along because it does have some flex, even though it is not technically a flex pen. It hasn't done much for me. Instead of a light ink, I went with a darker ink this month. I went with Birmingham Pen Company's Bearing Grease because I really like that ink a lot. And it does nothing in this pen. Now, I understand it's a fine point. It's not supposed to necessarily show off any sort of sheening or character, but it is just nothing. And by nothing, I mean nothing. Let's just write with it. It's a dark green. I have a video on this as well. Can link that above. It's a great ink. This is also a sheening ink, but nowhere near the sheening that you would see from the heavy Birmingham Pen Company sheeners that I used earlier. This is more subtle sheen. It's just like this dirty, oily color, which is what I love about it. Okay. This is another Fountain Pen Revolution Jaipur version 2. And in here, we'll start writing. You can play Guess the Ink. It is not a Birmingham Pen Company ink. Spoiler. Let's see where you can go from there. But it is a diamine ink that helps. And it is deep magenta. All right, this is a little unusual. These two pens actually have the same color in them because this pen is getting close to running out and I wanted to see what it looked like with a fine point. Tempted to put them on the same sheet because it is the same color. In fact, I think that's what I'll do. Really pretty gray blue. All right, let's get this spread about. It's just gorgeous. It's just such a nice, I don't know, gray, blue. I love the shading when it dries. Just beautiful. This is a Fountain Pen Revolution Himalaya version 2, and it has, we will see in one moment. It's a color that I would call red. This is one of the most straightforward Birmingham Pen Company inks that I've used though. It doesn't really shade much. It is not overly wet or dry. It doesn't have a weird chromatography paper. It's just kind of there. Which is not a bad thing. But like you see when I spread it out, it does go almost more, I don't know. It's not even really orange. It's like light red. Light red without being pink or orange, which I guess is unusual. This is the Ikaku Narwhal Urushi with the Regalia Crossflex nib on it. This is a extremely flexible flex nib, far more flexible than these Fountain Pen Revolution pens. Let me do the writing sample first. So I'm not going to go crazy with flex here. Ikaku. Been spending a lot of time with this pen recently, really trying to make friends with it, and this is the first fun color I've put in it. I've been playing it very safe, but let's just show the flex on this thing. I mean, this is no barely pressure. It's pressure. It is not much pressure. I'm tempted to do Doodlebud did a test with a scale and how much pressure he had to exert to get a full flex, and that was a weird angle there. That was kind of showing off the Mag 650, which I'm also interested in. I have a very hard time believing that that thing flexes more than this with less pressure. You have to be a little careful, a little slow. But if you take it easy, it is quite flexible. But remember with flex pens, you can just write normal old writing with them. If you don't have to flex them. You can use them as a fine point pen until you feel like going crazy. They're very versatile. That's part of the reason why I like them so much. I think some people think they have to write in cursive. Flex can look really, really great in print too. I think it looks great in print. They are fun. They are fun to me. And this looks a little fuzzy here. It's a little wet. It's wetter than I thought it would be, but it's been writing fine. This pen likes having more space too than some of the other flex nibs that I use. It likes bigger, a little more room. Almost a pink, but I would still call it a purple. The last currently inked pen is this Fountain Pen Revolution Himalaya, and this has the titanium flex nib that was in my Gravitas with the Fountain Pen Revolution feed. I did this to test to see if it was the nib or the feed that was the problem, and I got a very definitive answer. One thing I have to say about this, the ink in this pen is Noodler's Southwest Sunset, but it's going to look darker than it should because I did not clean this nib as well as I should have before I put it on there, and it's contaminating the ink. But this is more of a demo of the nib than anything else, and we'll worry about the color later. So when this nib was on this Gravitas right here, and I linked the review earlier, when it was on that Gravitas, it railroaded constantly all the time and was impossible to write with. So let's see how it works paired with this Fountain Pen Revolution feed. So it works great. it was a feed issue, 100%. Because when I write with this now, it does not railroad. Now, Southwest Sunset is a wet ink in general, I think. But the last ink that I had in the Gravitas, before I pulled the nib to put somewhere else, was Monteverde Smoke Noir, which is wetter than this, in my opinion. The feed is the problem. This nib is fine. It's a little stiff. It's not my favorite flex nib. I'll keep using it with a different feed. Oh, I actually got it to railroad. I'm writing pretty fast. It really goes to show you, though, with flex pens, how absolutely essential the feed is. And that, my friends, is all 24 currently inked pens for July. Okay, so here are all of my currently inked pens, the ones that are not part of the permanently inked collection that I have for the month of July. I actually really like doing it this way. I like that I can lay it out like this and move stuff around. It gives me a good overview of the colors that I have. For instance, I did not realize that these two are so very similar. The alfalfa just has a little bit less yellow, but they're so very close. And in the actual writing, it's hard to even tell the difference. But I will say that the alfalfa performs a little better. It's a little nicer to write with. And I do like how throughout the month I can make notes on the back about these. And we can just focus in on specific colors or specific nibs. Like, for instance, let me set this up so it's just the flex pens. So here's the 10 flex pens right here. And then like the broads, let's do that real quick. And there's the broads, and I have them right here. So, and here's the architects that I have. So let me just pull out what I'm most excited about and maybe what I'm least excited about for the month, and then we can wrap it up. These are the pen and inks that I'm most excited about this month, and I will tell you why briefly for each one. This brown, I'm really liking this brown a lot. I want to play with it some more and see, but I like the shading, I like the tone. I'm excited to use that in a flex pen. I'm excited about this pen because for the first time since I've gotten that Gravitas pen, it's actually fun to write with. It just writes, and that's what I want from a pen. I want to pick it up and I want to start writing. So I'm excited to use that. I'm excited to have a fun, bright color in my Ikaku with the Regalia Cross Flex nib. And this is very bright and not gray or any of the colors I've had, gray and dark blue. I'm excited for this to try the titanium nib in with a feed where it actually works properly. This color I'm less excited about, but I'm excited about the pen. I am very excited about this particular Architect / number 2 calligraphy nib. It's very nice to write with. I am excited to try other colors in it. And I'm very excited about this Trommel ink in this double broad. The shading is really something special. So those are the things that I am most looking forward to. And these are the things that I'm slightly apprehensive about. So I'm apprehensive about this because it's gorgeous in the swatch, but there's hardly any shimmer in the actual writing. This just looks gray. This is a beautiful dark gray with purple shimmer. Where's the disconnect? So maybe I need to refill this and just make sure that there's shimmer in there, but I thought I did that. I'm a little worried about that. This Wearingeul, I really like Wearingeul Loss. It looks super washed out in this pen, and I'm not sure if it's the nib itself or what the problem is there, but this nib is kind of scratchy to write with. I haven't noticed that with other inks before, but this has not so far been a super pleasant writing experience. Again, same issues that I have with the Pilot Falcon. It's just so fine, and using a darker ink hasn't helped that. So I'm going to have to make some decisions about that. And then my apprehension about this, I think you can see. What is this color? Where is the color? It is all 100% sheen. That's fine, but I want it to be more like this one, where there is sheen. You can see the sheen. There's sheen on the letters, but it's not 100% sheen. There's nothing else here. So I'm a little apprehensive about that one. In any case, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Let me know if you like this method of going through my currently inked pens better than just going through the list. I think it's a little more visual, and I actually really enjoy having these stacks of paper to refer to and make notes on. And when I do a review of my currently inked at the end of the month, I think it'll be a lot easier to refer back to these. I really appreciate you guys staying until the end of the video, and please feel free to come back anytime. I'd love to have you. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.